All we had to do was follow
basic ethical conduct.
Hi. Today's episode of the Jimquisition has us putting on our serious faces. Arr, arr. That's my serious face, because we're talking about serious business. The information in today's video has been provided anonymously, but the identities of those who provided the information has been verified personally by myself, and all of it paints a grim picture, not just of the company in question, but of the game industry itself. An industry ruled, in my opinion, by fear. A fear so prominent it's soaked into the very ground of this industry. And it's earth that needs to be dug up and repaved, because this cannot continue. So here we go, serious faces on, no skits, no bits, no laughs, except for me playing with this giant shrimp. Oh. A culture of fear. An environment steeped in fury. A place where people watch what they say and worry for their careers, not just in the company, but in the industry overall. This is how Rockstar Games is described by former employees who have been spilling the beans under condition of anonymity. Understandable anonymity, because Rockstar Games, arguably the biggest game developer on Earth, is notoriously litigious, and those who dare to speak up are still heavily impacted by the terror instilled into them by a corporation more worried about looking like the good guy than actually being the good guy.
Who are you? I'm a good guy. I've just come from the Good Guy Clubhouse, and I'll be your friend to the end. Heidi.
All we had to do was follow the damn...
For quite some time, I have been ruminating on conversations I've had with those who once worked under Dan and Sam Houser, Rockstar's sibling co-founders. The former employees I've spoken to share common threads: anger at the way they and their colleagues were treated, frustration with the company's infantile, volatile atmosphere, and a remarkable level of disgust reserved for one particular Rockstar executive, Jeronimo Barrera. Barrera was Rockstar's vice president of product development, and, according to sources, he was despised as much as he was feared. He was the Darth Vader of Rockstar, I was told. If the Housers were the Emperor, Barrera was the guy they sent in to get shit done. There's that scene in Return of the Jedi where Vader comes to the new Death Star and says, "I'm here to kick ass and the Emperor is following." That's what those meetings were. He'd kick the crap out of the studio to keep them productive and say, "By the way, the Housers are coming in a month. This needs to work." This is, I'm advised, how Rockstar got its critically acclaimed games made. Development on Max Payne 3 was said to be excruciating and oppressive, though for at least one worker it was less about how many hours they were expected to work, and more about the fact they worked under a brutal boot heel, made to feel small and powerless while executives shouted and screamed. Rockstar made games by, and I quote, beating developers into submission. Jeronimo Barrera especially came from the yelling school of employee management. The dude was petty and had personal vendettas against people all the time, made work super uncomfortable, I'm told. He had anger issues, yelling, throwing things. Say or do one wrong thing in front of him and you could get fired on the spot. Laugh with him about something, you might get yelled at because he meant to be serious. As Hand of the Fraternal Kings, Barrera was seen as the worst, but it was not just him. Working under Rockstar management is suggested to be a frightening game of walking on eggshells. The executives over there are allegedly far from keen to take criticism or have any employee do much more than agree with everything they say. I'm told one developer was fired for taking the initiative and attempting to improve Rockstar's famously archaic combat gameplay. Because the Housers were more interested in making interactive movies, cinematic experiences, rather than video games, they became offended at a developer trying to fix mechanics. They fired him for it, said one developer. He was a good dev, an asset to the team. There's very much a corrupt culture there. They're firing people for trying to do their job. Taking initiative, trying to improve things, being aware of faults, these are things that shouldn't get you fired, but he didn't drink the Kool-Aid. To him, Rockstar wasn't the most amazing company that can do no wrong. I've been informed this is part of the reason why games like Red Dead Redemption 2, while critically acclaimed and for many good reasons, have a lot of needlessly fiddly controls and detail. It's why Rockstar's combat doesn't seem to have evolved over, well, more than 10 years. The Jimquisition did reach out to Rockstar Games for an official comment. They did tell me that they were going to produce an official statement, but they did know when this video was going up, and as of right now, no statement has materialized. If that changes, I will of course let you know, but right now, I do not have an official comment from the company, though I did try. I did due diligence. What can you do? Former GTA producer Leslie Benzies attempted to sue Rockstar for unfair dismissal in 2016. The accusations laid out in the suit were an early glimpse at what others are now speaking out about. He claimed they fired his own son and threatened him with malicious allegations, which is apparently a common revenge tactic at Rockstar. Something they do to, in his words, concoct false grounds for termination. He claimed he was owed royalties exceeding $150 million, but that Sam Houser decided he'd been paid enough already. Soon after the money discussions, Benzies was swiftly offered a sabbatical by the company, which he attests was the preliminary stages of sacking him. The lawsuit itself was troubled, many of the complaints dismissed, and Rockstar would eventually state, "It is deeply disappointing and simply wrong for Leslie to attempt to take personal credit for what has always been the tremendous efforts of the entire Rockstar team, who remain hard at work delivering the most immersive and engaging entertainment experiences we can for our fans. We do not intend to comment further on this matter." Apparently there's a pretty good reason, and when I say a good reason, I mean a nefarious reason, for Rockstar to never want to comment on things like this. According to a source of mine, this was because the company didn't want all of its skeletons tumbling out of the closet in a courtroom. In particular, Rockstar didn't want people knowing about the parties, the casinos, the strip clubs, the fact that if anybody wanted to get ahead in the company, they'd have to go to said parties and casinos and strip clubs with a group of infantile men who behaved more like frat boys than executives. If you weren't into their idea of a party, you wouldn't have a very good chance of making it in the studio. It was very much a case of buddies looking out for buddies and excluding those outside the cabal. Leslie was on the fucking money, stated a whistleblower. "It was very clear if I was going to work my way into upper management, it would be about partying with the management. That is what Rockstar really wants to hide. They do not want to get this stuff exposed." Another source backs this claim up. "It's a big thing at Rockstar to be invited out after work. It's how people get in with the bigwigs to make the salaries they want to make. Jeronimo and similar important people would set up these outings, but keep the circle small." Jeronimo was a big perpetuator of this party culture. He had exclusive lists in his clique, and if anyone outside his chosen few ended up invited to these parties, he'd be furious. His group would make fun of and mock others within his little party circle, and one employee was told, "Don't ever confront him if you value your job and dignity." Rockstar expected any among their group with ambition to have the same predilection they did for the casinos and the strip clubs. As a result, men like Barrera were routinely unseemly in the workplace. One worker claimed he was super inappropriate around people in general, discussing and encouraging things like sex and drugs a lot. Stories have circulated that he would get violent at some of these parties, getting into brawls and committing physical assault. So it is unsurprising to me that prior to this video's publication, Kotaku published its own report accusing Jeronimo Barrera of sexual assault. According to my own sources, while they couldn't verify the particular story, it checks out. They're not surprised. Kotaku's Jason Schreier reported on allegations that a former Rockstar designer, Colin Bunchu, was groped by Jeronimo in 2014. According to the story, Colin was invited to sit on Jeronimo's knee, at which point the product management VP fondled his inner thigh. It's a creepy story, and an alarming account of how a man with no sense of boundaries used his power and position to coerce those under his influence. Barrera has categorically denied all allegations of misconduct through his attorney Robert Tracy, but the stories surrounding this man are pervasive and consistent. Some of them are as petty as they are bizarre. Said one former worker, "A story that bugs me to this day is that he had an angry fit about a harmless motivational poster someone on my team had hanging because it discouraged weekend working. It was a monkey on some vines saying something like, 'Can't wait for the weekend.' He sent someone to demand it be taken down, and the most senior person on our team was so afraid he'd blacklist us that we had to make peace with him by going to dinner with the guy. At that dinner, he brought up a discussion about losing virginity and tried to get us to share like we were drunk college buddies. It was just flat out weird, and I felt like one of those sweating, nervous cartoon characters that want to run away. Maybe that gave him an impression of me that got me even more on his bad side." The quoted source on this incident claimed to have been on Barrera's shit list, disrespected and mocked by Barrera's personal faction on occasion, sometimes over offences as minuscule as enjoying different types of video games to the executive. And again, while Barrera is the Darth Vader, he was nonetheless working for the proverbial empire. Even Leslie Benzies, the guy who sued Rockstar and brought many allegations to light, is alleged to have perpetuated Rockstar's toxic culture of fear, while the houses are only concerned with public perception, not private misbehaviour within their company. A former dev alleges Barrera was only let go from Rockstar in 2018 because they were scared of the Me Too movement and wanted to get ahead of it. With more and more stories regarding inappropriate behaviour and sexual misconduct arising across a number of industries, it is said the houses booted the VP as a way to cover their own tracks. It was announced Jeronimo had quit Rockstar to explore more avenues, which is code for "he got shit canned," I was told. The Me Too movement changed things. The houses were aware the culture had changed and their strip clubs and casinos were a bad look. Upper management would talk about the tits of female employees. These people are running the company. Jesus fucking Christ, I'm pissed off. Jeronimo was fired because Rockstar tried to course correct. This course correction was not about sincerely attempting to improve the company, however, but simply about hiding Rockstar's dirty laundry and keeping the company's reputation as clean as possible. As my previously quoted source put it, the houses are more concerned with being seen as good people. They should care more about making a quality product. When leaks about crunch on Max Payne 3 came out, management was clearly upset and said, "It's like they see us as the bad guys." And I thought, maybe there's something to that? They don't want a clear chain of accountability. It's a complex chain of failure. All these anecdotes, all this discussion appears to be bringing to a head sordid stories that have slowly emanated from the secretive bowels of the famously press-shy Rockstar for years. In 2010, there was the famous Rockstar Spouses blog post exposing cruel and harsh working conditions at Rockstar San Diego, citing pressure, stress, and an overall degradation in the quality of life of employees as they struggled to meet imminent deadlines. Management were accused of dishonesty, promising a reprieve from the overbearing workloads while knowing full well there'd be another deadline the moment the current work was done. Claimed the blog, "Instead of valued employees, a sentiment grows that they have lost not only the sense of being valued, but turned into machines as they are slowly robbed of their humanity." Rockstar is responsible for the most profitable piece of entertainment media of all time in Grand Theft Auto 5. GTA Online, which apparently the houses had little interest in, has raked in an inconceivable amount of money for Rockstar and its publisher Take-Two. Their games are critically acclaimed and beloved all around the world, but these games cost more than cash to make. They're built on the backs of employees who are now speaking out about having had to endure humiliation, cliquishness, cruelty, and rage. And the worst part is, it's not just Rockstar. This is the real face of a large portion of the so-called AAA game industry. This is the human cost of making video games for callous corporations that care about perception more than behaviour, that care about hitting deadlines more than treating workers with dignity. This is corporate culture at its worst and, in far too many places, at its most normal. There are great people working at Rockstar and XDev considered, especially San Diego, and it's not fun for them to have the company dragged through the mud. But I really think with the way they treat people selectively there and the overall precedents they set, that it should be public. People in game dev circles know some of the stuff I mentioned and more, but people on the outside don't, and I think that should change. Even I was warned before I started at Rockstar and thought, it can't be that bad. It nearly killed my passion for the industry. You don't have to be as gay as I am to celebrate Pride Month, and if you are in a celebratory mood, why not pop over to thejimporium.com where you can get this lovely rainbowy shirt and this lovely rainbowy pog. All the money from these sales will go to the Trevor Project because unlike corporations that pretend to celebrate LGBTQ rights, we're not just trying to make bank off the month. We're better than them. We're better. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go piss a gay rainbow and scream trans rights into the night sky.
About 3 years ago, I bought a rainbow tie to celebrate Pride Month on the Jimquisition, and every single year, I forgot. Well, this year, I remembered and couldn't find the tie. Fuck my gay life. The game industry is rotten to the core, as far as I'm concerned. So there's too much poison in there, and it needs to be drawn out like pus from a wound. And I hope that this disappointing industry, because that's the word for it, disappointing industry, sorts its shit out. And it is my hope that the more people who talk about this, who come forward to share information, the people who report on that information, all of us together can enact some sort of change, can push this industry into doing better because of all of the nastiness that gets brought to light. The kind of abuses and exploitation that goes on in the game industry can only happen in the dark. It can only happen while people are still scared to talk about it. So this week, I'm not going to thank God for me like I normally do. I'm going to thank God for those people who have found the courage, under anonymity or not, to speak up, to share their experiences. The people who have managed to brave and risk the blacklisting that could happen in this industry, in their careers, and actually dared to say something. Thank God for them. Thank God for anyone in games media, game journalist, live streamer, YouTuber, anyone who has contributed to getting the stories out there. Thank God for all of that. And that's it.